Welcome to Let's Talk Wellness. It's time to have new conversations about mental health. Join Myra James as she guides us along this journey. And now, let's talk wellness.
Welcome to Let's Talk Wellness. I'm your host, Myra James, and I want to say thank you for joining us today. These conversations are all about taking a deeper dive into understanding how we can support children and their families to have better mental health and wellness. Let's Talk Wellness is brought to you by the Extraordinary Lives Foundation, a nonprofit organization whose mission is to improve children's mental health and emotional wellness. You can find out more information about ELF and more episodes at elfempowers.org/podcasts. And you can find this link in the show information below. Now, let's talk wellness with today's guest, Myra Hollis. Myra is a new mom, author, and therapist. Welcome, Myra.
Hello, I'm glad to be here.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. So how new are you as a new mom?
It's been 2 years, but it's felt like it just happened yesterday, literally.
Oh my gosh. Yes. And it must be so interesting with you being a therapist and a mom and kind of practicing what you preach or teach. How has that been?
It's been a journey. I try not to be too much of a therapist when I'm with my little, but I am very big on identifying emotions, which I feel like, of course, as a therapist, that's a given.
Yeah, that's amazing. Wow. So you have two set of cards that you shared with me when we first spoke, right?
Yeah.
What's the difference of the two?
So this is for kiddos over 10, and then this one is for kiddos under 10. And so with the decks, I wanted to have some language that was a little bit more friendly for our kiddos, because oftentimes kiddos, they want to understand language, but we have to teach them. And so I feel that the 10 and under deck is a great opportunity to not only connect with our littles, but also help them to develop their own language.
Beautiful, beautiful. So which one do you want to start with? I'm going to start with the younger ones and then get older.
Ooh, yeah. Let's maybe do the younger ones.
Okay.
Okay.
So when you're with them, do you do something like fun? You just say pick a card, or how does that work?
Yeah, so I'll usually just say just pick any card, and then to warm up, oftentimes littles, they'll want mom to share first. So maybe mom will share first, but if you have a little who's like, I want to do it first, and I'll let them do it first.
Yeah.
So you just pretty much pick a card. So let's see. So I'll share how to use the cards, right? So like I said, you pick a card. And so we have a card that kind of breaks down for you how to answer the question. So you want to use I statements, let one person talk at a time, and take moments of pause when needed, and always end with a hug, no matter how hard the conversation.
Oh, wow. Interesting. And before we start, do you recommend, like, is this used with a therapist and a child versus a parent and a child, or what are the dynamics?
Yeah, so it will be with a parent and a child. So my focus in therapy is to help women who struggle with relationships with their moms. And so me also being a mom, I like to create things that are centered towards moms and daughters building a closer connection, because I realized how hard it was for me with my mom as I started to get older. And so it could be, a kiddo and mom doing it in session with the therapist there, kind of like mediating. But I'm really big on how can we have resources outside of therapy. So this would be a resource outside of therapy.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to do a card?
Yeah, let me pick one. I'll let you pick it for us.
Okay, so this one says C for connection. On days after school or work, when can we make time to connect? And so I have a little note at the bottom that says, after answering this, figure out what you two can do together. So what makes sense? Do you want to answer? If I were your daughter, what would you say?
Yeah, are there graphics on it, or are the graphics the same?
There's no graphics. So it's pretty much highlighting the letter of the alphabet and then the word that goes with it with the question. And then for the little ones, I have a little note at the bottom for them just to make it a little bit easier to answer.
Beautiful. So how can we spend time together?
Yeah, how can we connect when you're done with work and I'm done with school?
Gosh, depending obviously on the child. My daughter played softball, so we'd go outside and have a softball catch.
Okay.
That's always fun. Sometimes she'd like to go get ice cream or just like cuddle on the couch and watch something together or read a book.
I love that.
You know,
Okay.
obviously depending on the weather and the day and all that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my daughter, she's really into polishing her nails and she really loves getting dressed up. So I'd say, hey, we can polish our nails together as many colors as you like, because she likes to do multiple colors.
Okay.
And then we can get dressed up and, dance around the living room. That seems to be her thing as of lately.
And you're dressing up too?
In my own little way. She makes me put on a tiara. So that's
That's
my first.
okay. I love it. Oh, that's so fun. Yeah. Huh. That would
Yeah.
be really interesting if like the child's willing to dress up and the mom isn't,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
That would be really, yeah. Or, because what happens when you probably have scenarios where a lot of times I can imagine the child wanting to do something. I saw this in my own house with, my husband would want to go do something with our middle one who is gifted and challenged with Asperger's and ADHD. And
Yeah.
he would say, do you want to do A, B, or C? And our son would say, neither. And then
Oh,
and then he would say, how about, but if you're gonna say lacrosse catch, baseball catch, or basketball, something like that. And then our son would say, well, what about we go to the archery range or to the shooting range?
yes.
And of course, unfortunately, my husband's attitude would be like, well, you don't do what I want to do. I'm not going to do what you want to do, which God help me. Like we need to act as parents, not as the child. But that one, that's like a hard scenario. That's where we need you, the therapist, to intervene.
Yeah. And I think that's where we have to talk about the psychoeducation around connection. When we build connection with our littles, it transfers into when they become, those middle schoolers. Middle schoolers are the rough days and those teenage days. And then, when they're actually an adult. So we kind of have to figure out what are ways in which I can do the things that they enjoy doing to build that connection with them and show them that they're important, because then that transfers into like adulthood, right? Like I think about my parents who my mom was super like, you do whatever you want to do. My dad was like, if it's not sports, I'm not really interested. And
Yeah.
now thinking of how the dynamics kind of play out, where I'm like, you don't really know what I like and you don't really know me because you didn't take that time. So that's why it's so important to get in with our littles now and do things that they enjoy.
Yeah, I love it. And it's not like it's so funny, that I just keep hearing the word ego. Ego comes into the play, right? And sometimes I've noticed that men seem to have a stronger ego than women, overstatement. But yeah, and really, so I'm hearing you say like doing what the child wants, not what the
Yeah.
parent wants, right? And that
Mm-hmm.
has to be at least one thing, even if it's just going for ice cream or something you can do together, go to a movie, go for a drive, go for a bike, whatever. There's
Yeah.
got to be something.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that the parent doesn't love the child. They just, that's probably how they grew up with like, do as they
Mm-hmm.
say, not as they do. Wow. Okay, let's pick another card.
Okay. So I got the Z card, Zen. What is your place of Zen at home? And what can be our place of Zen? And so I wrote a little note. This is your chance to share about somewhere that makes you feel comfy and safe. Do you want to share about your Zen place?
Yes, and now I just figured out why it's the ABC conversations, because it's literally the alphabet ABC. It took me a little. Gosh, my Zen place. Yeah, sitting just outside in the backyard. And since we're in California, it's generally
Yeah.
a beautiful day. That's my Zen place. And obviously, my daughter's now 22, so it's a lot different than, like we're discussing, like, 'cause it's just gonna be the two of us Mother's Day. It's like, okay, what do we want to do together? We want to both get massages, because for that one, it's like, well, I am the mother, I get to choose, but obviously let them do something they want to do, not,
Yes.
yeah. So, and obviously, massages is in place for both of us. What about
Yes.
you?
Massage is always a good idea.
Yeah.
I would say that my Zen place at home, people always like laugh when I say this, but it's the couch. I like to be one with the couch. I like to disappear into the couch. But when it comes to my daughter, we have a picnic every day on our front lawn. So I would say our place of Zen would definitely be the I'm very into let's get in the grass, let's get on the trampoline. How can we spend time outdoors? So we definitely make our front yard very fun.
I love it. And then you can go sit on the couch. Yeah, I'm a big
Yes.
couch. I love cuddling on the couch with like a big comfy pillow and blanket and just, yeah.
Yes, me
I mean,
too.
not all day, just at
Yeah.
the end of the day. Beautiful.
I can do it all day. No shame.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Let's do one more from this deck.
Yes, let's do one more. Ooh, F, fun. What does fun mean to you? Take a break to do something fun in this moment after you decide what you consider fun.
Oh God. You're talking to a workaholic. Everything I do, I think is fun, but it's also work related. Okay. Oh my gosh, you start.
Okay.
What's your question?
Fun means to me just lots of giggles and laughter. And if I could pick something that would be fun, it would be, I'm thinking about my little, so it'd probably be some type of like tickle war. Like we literally count, go high, and then when we find each other, we have to tickle each other.
Oh my God, that's so cute. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so well, it's funny because again, this is supposed to be under 10 and under, but finding something that we could laugh at, I think, on TV, but because I remember once, and she was older than 10, we were watching a comedian, I forgot his name, and he has this really heavy Italian accent, and he made me laugh so hard I couldn't breathe, and she was laughing so hard watching me laugh. It was just such
Oh,
a beautiful
that's so
moment. Yeah.
sweet.
So like just yeah, Sebastian, that's his name, Sebastian Madagascar. I don't know, so bad with names, but yeah. So oh, I love that. I love that. And then so you're saying so for the older
Mhm.
kiddos, is it this similar questions or like what? How do you really compare the difference?
They're a little bit similar, but the language is a little bit different. So let's pull one. I'll give you an
Okay.
example of one. So, like, for example, J is judgmental. So the question is, what ways have you felt that I judge you? That probably wouldn't be something that a 10-year-old really
Oh,
understands so much.
yeah. Oh, wow. That's a deep one.
It gets deep really fast with this deck.
Yeah. Wow. Oh my goodness. That's so funny because I look at my daughter's hair and I so try to bite my tongue and I want to say, and then I once said, "Is your hair gelled or greasy?" It was so judgmental and just like the things that she wears, and it's just like, okay, Mara, bite your tongue, look at her beautiful heart, her beautiful soul, and ignore the other things. But yeah, it'd be interesting to turn it around and see what she said. What about yeah, for you?
Hmm, that's a hard one because I feel like I
Not
don't
because your
spend
kids, she's younger, but you know.
yeah. What is something that she does? I guess it would probably be at first, she would just go up to kids and just like start talking to them, right? Because she's still learning like social cues. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, why did you do that? But now, as I reflect, I'm like, oh, you have to remind yourself, like, she's figuring out what it means to make friends. And I am happy that I have a kiddo that's willing to be friends, right? Because that's something a
Yeah.
lot of kids struggle with connecting with others and figuring out like what that looks like, where she has like no shame. She jumps all in.
Yeah, and she's two, you said. Wait till she gets older and like when they're like with the social media. I mean, it is going to be so
Uh,
hard because the social cues aren't there at the social media. And then when you're in person, that whole thing, that's
mhm.
you know what's amazing? I love how these cards really invite honesty and compassion into the
Yeah.
relationship, you know?
I feel like those are the key fundamentals in relationships with our kids. Like you have to have that compassion piece, no matter what they present to you, you literally have to have that part of things.
Yeah, that's really interesting. A beautiful statement. And it's so challenging, you know, especially in this day and age when so many kids they have new hair color, they have a new gender identity, and to just honor that you know, and accept them unconditionally. I
Yep.
wish it was as easy as it could be because, you know, and I feel like these kids are incarnating to help their parents be more
Oh
understanding. And
yeah.
unfortunately, you know, if the parent doesn't change, it's a child that suffers.
Yes. Yes.
So,
I definitely it's like putting a mirror to your face, having a
oh yeah,
child.
these kids mirror what we need to heal for sure. They are a different breed this day and age. So it's interesting is that word honesty. So many of these kids are so, I don't know if they're born like intuitive, psychic, but they know when we're lying. And there are just some questions. I mean, there's some times where you just, you know, it's better to not answer and just say, I'm not going to answer that than to give them to lie and give them a wrong answer.
Very
Because
true.
they know, and that we definitely don't want to teach them that. And I remember my daughter asked me a question. I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna, it was, she was 20 years old. I'm like, I'm just gonna come out and answer her. And thank God I did because she already knew the answer. She heard it from somewhere else. And, you know, it's so unbelievable. We think our kids are so young and so naive, but they are not.
Very true.
Beautiful. Okay, how about another card?
Let's do it. Ooh, P positive. Tell me something positive about your day.
Oh, it was the first one being positive?
No, tell me something positive about
Right,
your
but
day.
what was, oh, P positive. Okay, okay,
Huh?
got you. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's so beautiful. Gosh. Um, I had a great meeting this morning with somebody that's
Ooh,
very passionate about children's mental health, and it's so nice to hear that people are getting on the bandwagon. It was an older gentleman that met with a coworker and I, and he's very involved with Shock Children's Hospital, and he retired recently from being a lawyer. And it was just amazing that he's putting so much time, talent, treasure, energy into really helping move the dial with mental health. It was just amazing.
so important. Yeah. I would say for me, it was probably taking the time to go feed my grandma. That's something I do every day, but um seeing how like hungry she was and how like she enjoyed the food, I was like, oh, I made her like a nice meal. So I take pleasure in feeding her good food.
That's beautiful. Does she live near you?
Yeah, I walked to her house. She literally lives a 5-minute walk away.
Wow, and she has a great granddaughter. That is such a gift. How beautiful is that?
Yes.
Oh,
She's
that's
so
beautiful.
mhm.
Amazing. Okay, let's go. Let's keep going deeper. We're deep.
Let's see, let's do another one. Ooh, L, love. Paint your picture of what love means for you. Ooh.
Wow. That's so funny. I mean, the easiest thing I would just draw a heart with a smiley face on it. Like, because, but that's also like love makes me happy, but it's, I think the question is more like what makes you feel love.
What love means for you. Either way.
But yeah, gosh, it's so interesting. Love is so many different meanings, right? I mean, we love people differently. Like when you say, I love you to, love a spouse or a child, a parent, or one of your friends. Love means just hopefully um, loving someone unconditionally and being open to what they say and not judging them. Of course, we still judge and love them, so that's a little tricky, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, just for me, it's giving versus receiving. I mean, there's a give and take, but definitely like doing for others to help them to make them happy, which makes us happy. Yeah,
That's beautiful. And I like how in the beginning you were like thinking of like actually drawing a picture. And I think it's interesting how we think about words, right? Like you could read this card and think I literally have to pull out like paper and paint, or I need to pull out a paper and like actually draw it. Or you could do it with every detail. So I think that's one of the cool things about the card too, of it gives you free range to kind of approach it however you want.
right. That's so cool. Yeah, for me, like when I get ideas, it's not even typing on the computer, it's that hand pen to paper writing that just like, kind of my answers come through.
Most
So
definitely.
interesting. Oh, I
Yeah.
love that. What about you for love?
When I think about love, I think of growth and challenge. And what I mean by that is like if I really have love for you, I'm going to challenge you to always be a better person. And for you to lean on me in those moments where it may feel difficult to lean into what it means to change and be a better person or to grow, and also to help you, follow through whatever your dreams and your passions are. And I would kind of expect the same thing back of kind of like that accountability piece, but in a loving way of like, you got this, I'm in support of you. I think that's what love means for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are some messages that you see as not empowering,
Ooh.
women and their daughters? And what would you do,
Ooh.
of course, to help turn that around?
Yeah, I think the one that kind of stands out for me is the comparison piece of when I was your age or when I was in that phase of my life, I was able to do X, Y, and Z thing. And what I say to moms is to remind yourself that you are not your child and your child is not you. You don't own them. They did come from you, however you birthed them, right? Or however you brought to your life, but you don't own them. And so when we think of that, we have to be reminding ourselves that I'm walking alongside a human, that I want to be their very best person, whatever that looks like. This is not me. This is not my life. I am a part of their life.
Mm,
I think that would probably be the main thing. Because I even think about, me and my mom, where when I talk to her about being a mom, she brings it back to when she was a mom and was doing it. And I'm like, things different. We are not the same person. And so I see that a lot though.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Absolutely. And I wish I knew then what I knew now, right? I think I'm having my child. They're going to do what I want them to do. And I didn't realize I'm bringing a whole new soul into this world. And they're coming in with some of
Yes.
their own gifts and challenges. I just had no clue. I was just no clue, and wow, the universe definitely threw me three amazing ringers. That is, yeah, that's powerful. That is so beautiful. So, these cards are amazing. And if people want, do you sell them online?
Yeah, they can find them at abcconversations.com. And if you check out our Instagram, it's literally conversations. You'll see other people using the cards because I think that everyone kind of uses them in their own way. So it's
Yeah,
cool to see other people using them and how they use them.
I love that. We'll share those links in the show information.
Okay.
We're going to take a quick break and we'll be back, and we can't wait to hear about your book, Senses of Self. So stay tuned.
We hope that you're enjoying today's Let's Talk Wellness podcast. And if you have a topic that you would like us to explore, we would love to hear from you. Simply email us at info@elfempowers.org. That's info@elfempowers.org. And now, back to the show.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Wellness. I'm your host, Myra James, and today we're speaking with Myra Hollis. Welcome back, Myra.
Yes.
So those ABC conversation cards are amazing. I can't wait to go order them when we're done with this interview. Now let's talk about your book, Senses of Self. What inspired you to write it, and what's it about?
So Senses of Self was birthed from an idea that I had when working with clients when I was training and in grad school. I find that oftentimes we talk about writing letters to ourselves, so our future self, our younger self. And while that's great, I feel like it brings up a lot of different emotions and we're not able to pin that thing down. And so I try to steer a different way. And I have my clients think about the emotion they were experiencing the most and write a letter to that emotion. And so from there, I started to collect these letters over the course of like 3 to 4 years. I compiled them together and I put them into this book. This is Senses of Self. So it's kind of like chicken noodle soup style. So I remember Chicken Noodle Soup, the book where people would submit their stories. So it's kind of the same way where you'll open the book and you'll see stories. So handwritten stories like this. So I have some of those. Some people just email me their stories. They're all anonymous. And it helps you to feel like there's somebody else in the world that's going through what I'm going through. There's so many different types of letters in here. And then I also went ahead and put in some journal prompts in there. So that way, whenever you feel called to journal and you're like, I don't know what to journal about, you can just pick this up. It's not something to use every day unless you feel called to do that. And that's pretty much how it was birthed.
That is amazing. So tell me more about the journal part. You said there's one section that gives journal prompts.
So I'll give you an example. So this person wrote a letter to their anger. And so you can read the journal entry here. And then when you flip the page, I was doing an example of how to use it. And so it'll say, here is your space to write to yourself. And so you can write whatever letter to your angry self. And then it has a little affirmation. So it says, it is okay to be angry. I will not let myself stay in this state.
Wow. And are there journaling right there in the book or a separate piece of paper?
Right in the book. And then at the back of the book, there's also prompts. So you can just, and for example, this one says, who is someone you need to forgive? How will life be different once you do this? And then I wrote a little note on the side, letting things go is easier said than done. I challenge you to think of ways you can push through the hurt that is caused by what you're holding on to. Next, I invite you to give yourself grace. Please be reminded that you are human and sometimes letting go is tough.
Amazing. Yeah, that forgiveness thing. And it's so funny because I always feel like people just don't know what it's like but until they do it, right? And even when I worked on that towards my dad, like you feel like you're letting them off the hook, which you're not. And that's so important.
Right.
It's a great one. And what's great about these, I feel like that they could pick it up over and over again when the emotion comes out, right? If they're feeling angry in a new day, it's like, grab a piece of paper, go, so you talk about forgiveness, you talk about anger, what other emotions?
Ooh, there's some pregnancy stuff in here. Um,
Oh,
let me
share with
pull
that. My
up
husband's
the.
an OB/GYN. I'd love to hear about that.
So there's one on motherhood. The pregnancy one that's in there talks about a woman who had ectopic pregnancy, and so what her experience was with that, because ectopic pregnancy is not really talked about so much, and so I wanted to make sure that was included in here. We
Yeah.
have one for boundaries, pick-me-ups, facing obstacles, heartbreak, feeling not chosen, discouraged, grieving, motherhood, like I mentioned, fearful self, finding self, angry self, alone self. There's many different versions.
Wow. So amazing. So let me ask you a question. It's so funny. When I saw a woman, the first thing she said to me was a friend, I haven't seen her in a while. The first thing she looks at me, she's like, I need to work on forgiving my dad. I'm like, okay, I don't know. I hope that wasn't a bad thing when you saw me that I made you think of that for, whatever, that's good. But it's interesting, like, so when I didn't get into the details because we were in a place to discuss that. We are having another meeting, but sounds like she had a few siblings and her dad just appeared to like her the least.
Mm,
How do you as a therapist work with that? And then we're
yeah.
talking now, she's 3 kids later and probably in her 50s or 60s.
Mhm. That means absolutely nothing. I always tell clients, when someone has hurt you and they like have really hurt you, no matter what the experience is, you almost get stuck in that space. So if dad treated you like that at the age of 12, there's still a little 12-year-old that's hurt inside of you. No matter how old you are, you can be 80 years old and the 12-year-old inside of you is still going to hurt. And
Yeah.
so you have to define what forgiveness even means for you. And then ask yourself, what do I get out of this forgiveness? Because forgiveness is for oneself, it's not for the other person. So then once
Yeah.
you ask yourself those questions, you got to start to ask yourself, well, how do I get to the space of how I define forgiveness if this was just any person? And then you got to start from there, and also tell yourself that I'm looking for the intensity of my emotions to change, not for me to forget what happened. Because you don't have to forgive and forget. That's You want the intensity of how you feel to change. You don't want to be at a 10. Maybe we want to be at a 7 because the 7 feels safe. But be challenging yourself of what intensity do I want to feel? Because 10 is not safe.
Yeah. You're such a knowledgeable and wise old soul, young person with an old soul. Did you always know that you wanted to be a therapist growing up?
Yeah, never wanted to be anything else. My mom's friends would come to me and talk to me, and they'd always be like, oh my gosh, your daughter is like my therapist. And I'd be like, what is that? And then once I researched, I was like, oh, I actually do kind of fit this. And this has been all my life.
Wow, that is so amazing. And do you have a preference? It sounds like you work with like a lot of moms and children, but do you have a preference of who you work with, or is that it?
I do not. When I first started, was with kiddos. So now I kind of dibble and dabble with kiddos, but I enjoy working with people that are just experiencing life changes and transitions. So whether that's you're stepping into motherhood, you're moving to a new city, you're starting a new job, maybe you're dealing with grief, things like that are like my jam. Those are things I'm good at.
Wow. And with all those changes, I'm thinking about like different types of, all these, so many people, so many of us are control freaks, right? Because you feel so out of control. We try to control something which we have no control over. So that must really, like, for someone that has a control issue and there's a life change, that must really put them into like fight or flight.
Yes, for sure. For sure.
Wow. Yeah. Are you familiar with EMDR?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do you do it, or do you refer to that, or?
I am trained in EMDR. I don't necessarily practice it all the way through, but I will say what I enjoy about EMDR is safe, calm place. And that is something that I have all my clients learn and practice. And even when I get invited to like companies and they have me do workshops, I'll teach that to them because I feel like that is a tool that everyone should have in their back pocket.
Interesting. So when you say teach it to them, because I know there are different ways, how would you teach it to them? Because I know there's the one with the eye movement, there's one tapping, and there's how do you teach it?
So what I pretty much do is I introduce safe, calm place. So I have them engage in an exercise where they identify it, they're able to place themselves there, and then they can decide if they want their palms down to ground, palms up to receive, or if they want to do like the butterfly taps or hug themselves to really get themselves grounded in it. And I found that that's been very useful for folks.
Amazing. And then, so when they're feeling out of control, they will do that. And then, so it helps like reset their brain, kind of.
Yeah, I mean, it's an added coping tool. I feel like oftentimes we're just talking about meditation and journaling, but
Yeah.
not everyone has access to that. And sometimes that can feel like not helpful.
Yeah. I love that. We have this character for the nonprofit Piggy Bear, and Piggy Bear teaches about the Piggy Bear hug, the self-hug. And when you go like
Yeah.
this, and oh my gosh, I learned this because I was in yoga years ago. I'm like, oh my God, this feels amazing. And it
Yes.
kind of is like tighter than somebody else can hug you, when you put the hands over the shoulders and just, teaching that and like the breathing, so profound.
Yes.
Wow, wow, wow. So what advice would you give to somebody? Oh gosh, I have so many questions. First, obviously, we have to encourage people to have the courage and know that therapy is not, doesn't mean you're weak. It actually means you're strong to have the courage to do it, right? But once they say like, okay, I'm going to delve into this, what would you recommend for them?
Be all in. Don't hide anything, or don't lie from your therapist. Don't duck and dodge your therapist. Oftentimes what people will do is they'll start therapy and it'll feel scary because they're talking about things they have not talked about, and they'll kind of just fall off the face of their earth from their therapist. Tell your therapist that
Mm,
you're having a hard time working through this, you need some support.
yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah. So that's interesting. And if a patient stops coming, the therapist can't really follow up with them, right? They have to let him be.
I mean, you can reach out to them and say, hey, do you need to schedule like a new time? Like, is there something going on that you need to talk about? And if they don't respond, it wouldn't make sense to keep contacting them.
Yeah. So what would you say that daughters need to hear more of?
Daughters need to hear of the fact that your mom is doing this for the first time, just like you are, no matter their age. So even if mom is 65 or 70, this is still her first time being that age on that day.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That is beautiful and
Mhm.
profound. And it's interesting because so many of us don't want to be like our parents. And then we
Yeah.
kind of go to the other extreme, and yeah, parenting is definitely one of the most challenging things we can do, don't you think? I mean, it's so beautiful, it's so amazing, but it's also, woo.
Mm.
And then there's so many, it's
Yeah.
like when to follow your gut, when to follow, then, when to, what your head's saying, and knowing what's right and wrong. And if you have 10 different, therapists that say, let's say 10 different things, right? And it's just, I guess, listening kind of to your heart when you know what's right and what's wrong.
So true. So
Oh
true.
my goodness. Yeah. That's amazing. And so people want to, are you located in California?
Yes, I'm located in California.
Okay, so you're limited to working with patients in California, correct?
Yep.
Yeah. Wow. And what is the best way for people if they want to get in touch with you, if they want to follow you on social media, if they want to work with you?
Yeah, you can find me on My Senses of Self. That is my website, mysensesofself.com, or on Instagram, My Senses of Self, and I'll pop up.
Beautiful, beautiful. But let me just say, Myra, it's been such a pleasure having you today. And for our friends out there watching and listening, I want you all to know that you are amazing.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Let's Talk Wellness. This podcast has been brought to you by the Extraordinary Lives Foundation, a 501c3 nonprofit organization. If you would like to listen to more conversations like this, we invite you to subscribe to our mailing list at www.elfempowers.org to be notified when our episodes are published. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to bringing you our next conversation on Let's Talk Wellness.